his book on Green Tara, Bokar Rinpoche, B-O-K-A-R, Bokar Rinpoche. He was very close with Green Tara, Bokar Rinpoche was. And actually that's how I received my Green Tara from the Karmapa, was because I was living in Darjeeling at the time, and Bokar Rinpoche had passed the year when I had just first got to India, and then the second year I went to see him encased in his Kalachakra stupa, and so he had been left. Actually, he'd been encased in salt. When certain high masters have achieved tukdam, or meditative pose after they've died, so their heart has stopped but they're still warm and there's no breath, and they're sort of finishing up everything that they need to do before they fully exit. So he was one of those, and so you put them in salt sometimes if you're going to encase them into a stupa. Sometimes you burn the body, and sometimes you actually put them inside a stupa. So Bokar Rinpoche was going to be put inside a Kalachakra stupa because that was his other main practice. And but he was very close with Green Tara, and he has the most excellent book on Green Tara you will find. But the night before that they went to put him in the stupa, so when you're sitting in tukdam, you're cross-legged and you're sitting in your meditative position, and they put him in the room with all of the 21 Taras, and in the morning when they came in, inside his hand was like nectar, was like dutsi. And he had been dead and gone for a year, but it was just his body was left. So they very carefully scooped that out and then added that to water and then gave it to everyone that was there. So that was pretty special. And so and the Karmapa had come for that, putting him into the stupa. And so at that time, because of the closeness that Bokar Rinpoche had with Tara, was why the 17th Karmapa gave Tara at that time. So I was there for that, and so that was pretty special. So if you really want to read the best book on Green Tara, his is hands down, of all the ones that I've seen, the best. So, so the mantra itself, which I've given you a handout for, is pretty powerful in its own right. It has lots of meaning behind it. So if you've heard me talk about mantra before, mantra literally means, man means mind, and tra means protect. So it literally means protect the mind. So this particular mantra is pretty steeped in meaning. Om itself is comprised, and it's not like Om like you hear in the yoga classes. It's Om, Om, So it's actually three things encompassed in one, and so that represents the whole universe. And it can also be considered as something that helps to purify one's neurotic attachments and bring one towards more bliss, and to eliminate issues of pride. So that's what that actually means. So it also talks about the the three syllables within that one is about the three stages of cosmic creation, and creation and purification at the same time. So it's a pretty powerful mantra, just saying that correctly. Tara, so of course I've explained that it means about crossing over or liberating, but it literally means like liberating and bringing one to a place of comfort and ease and contentment. So relative suffering, the body, speech, and mind level, birth, old age, sickness, and death, all of these sort of relative problems that we have. This is sometimes kind of defined in Buddhist literature as like true suffering, like actual suffering that people are having. And this is on the relative level, this sort of true suffering. And So when we're saying Tara, we're actually meeting with and we're trying to liberate that relative suffering. So these are things that we may have like attachment to or aversion to, and like we see something and we think that we want it, and then we go for it, and then we find that it doesn't actually bring us any happiness. It leads to no satisfaction. So she basically alleviates this basic discord that we have for that. And we can also think of this particular word, Tara, as in taking refuge in her practice or her mantra itself to liberate any false relative suffering that we're experiencing. And the more you do this practice, the more you have the opportunity to liberate yourself so that you can then have greater compassion for others. So tu tare, together, means liberating from the 8 fears. So I promised I would explain these 8 fears. And these are related, again, to more relative levels of suffering. But these are dangers. These are fears of fire, water, earth, and worldly things like thieves, snakes, floods, these kinds of things, or when one is traveling. But the true danger that she liberates us from is our root poisons. So she liberates us from our attachment, our aggression, and our ignorance, because that is the root cause of fear even arising in the first place. So in a cultural context, you could consider this mantra to be used externally, physically, when there's an actual real fear happening, and a difficulty in a particular moment of physical difficulty and mental difficulty and emotional difficulty. But you can also consider this more on the far distal cause of difficulty, or the distal cause of illness and discord, which is the root poisons, our basic ignorance, and freeing us from our karmic habits, which continue to create us propelling ourselves forward. So the true cause of suffering really is our ignorance and our 3 root poisons. So by calling on Tutare, we're literally asking her to liberate us from those. But it's not that we can't use that in the physical moment when we need. When I was giving birth to my first child, I was in labor for 3 days. I had preeclampsia and I almost died. And at the very end, they had to take me for an emergency C-section, and things went kind of all sorts of wrong, sideways, and I started to hemorrhage and they couldn't stop the bleeding. And then they got my son out and he wasn't making a sound, and he was in trouble and I was in trouble, and I knew it. And I switched from doing my Medicine Buddha mantra while I was laying there to Tara. And I just prayed to Tara, just make the baby okay. It's okay if I go, just make the baby okay. That was kind of my prayer. And I prayed to Tara in that moment. And many people have asked me, why did you pray to Tara and not Medicine Buddha, because you're so close with Medicine Buddha? And the answer is because I know Tara will come swiftly. She's ready to come. And so I made that prayer and I started saying the mantra, and then I heard him breathe, and then I heard the doctor go, it worked, it stopped, because they had to give me 3 shots. Usually you just need 1. And so I knew it. I could feel my eyes rolling in the back of my head. I knew I was bleeding out. And in that moment, my compassion was for my child. It wasn't for my own life, right? That's when you use Tara. It's that kind of thing. It's please just save the baby. And luckily the shot worked and I didn't die. But that's what you think about for that tutare. It's that kind of immediate, real danger that you need assistance with. And then ture, by itself repeating afterwards, is representing liberation from our dualistic thinking. So we talked about that in the beginning, about how we have this dualistic understanding of male and female principal energies, or wisdom and action. And so she's literally opportunity arising of liberation from that stuck, kind of confused level of thinking. And so on an ultimate level, so we've talked about the sort of basic level, but on the ultimate level, this is a cessation of suffering. Of course, that's the ultimate goal of Dharma, right? We all want to not suffer, we all want to be happy, and we all want to have enlightenment. So it can be somewhat difficult to obtain, but that's really requiring us to have purification. And so this Ture is really about a purification of our dualistic idea. Because as long as we're stuck in dualism of I and other, there's no potential for Buddha nature to arise, because we're just obscured by this perception that we have of I and other. And so because we're lacking this realization of the interdependent nature of all phenomena on every moment, on every elemental level, from our physical form to our speech form to our mental forms, then we're unable to fully be interconnected with all of phenomena. And so we continue to exist in duality. And so this Ture is literally stomping through that with her foot. She's literally saying, no, enough of that. We have to cut it at the root of ignorance, and that will stop suffering. So people will say to me sometimes, like, well, how do you stop disease? Well, ignorance. You have to stop ignorance. And if you don't have ignorance, then you won't propel yourself lifetime after lifetime into another body unless you choose to do so for the great compassion of other beings. So here she's liberating us from the relative level of like actual disease and disharmony and fear and danger, but also the ultimate level of our dualistic thinking. So Soha means may this root deeply in my mind. The meaning of this whole mantra, like all of those meanings that I just gave you, Soha is like saying, may this take root, may this hold, and that inspires us in our refuge for seeking enlightenment or trying to eliminate that basic cause of ignorance. So this is establishing devotion. This is establishing determination to release oneself from the 3 root poisons. And it's thought to sort of give like fortitude or encouragement and like a devoted sense of purpose of why you're saying everything else in the mantra. Okay? So that's what the mantra means. So if you've never done Tara mantra before, it's good to do 100,000. It's a short mantra. It's not hard to do 100,000. You just have to do them pretty regularly. So you can also like set a goal, like I'm going to do 100,000 by next year or something like that. So I recently had somebody that I assigned this mantra to, and she finally completed it. And it was so auspicious because she completed it, and then the very next month, one of her main teachers was going to give Green Tara empowerment, but he wouldn't give it to anyone unless they had already completed that. So it was just sort of auspiciously all aligned for this person. So 100,000 is a good place to start. Okay. So let's do some mantra accumulation together. So we'll begin like normal when we do mantra, where we'll accumulate and then out loud, and then we'll internally say the mantra. And then if you're wondering about what this mantra means, I think this will be posted on the YouTube, so you could go back and re-listen and write it down later. Okay? So Om Tare Tutare Ture Soha, 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 Om Tare Tutare Ture Soha,
Oh, God.